So, what is the biggest thing that stops people from being able to do those things? It's their money mindset, it's their belief system surrounding money. And what that really boils down to is that the way that you and everybody else looks at money actually blocks them from receiving it. And the reason why I say everyone else is because it is normal to have resistance and limiting beliefs surrounding the idea of money, because we grow up in families and a society that gives us very mixed messages about it. So I know that everybody has heard the phrase that money is the root of all evil. But what a lot of people don't realize is that even though that sounds like a very superficial cliche, at our core, part of us believes it. So we're here to teach you that money is actually the root of all awesomeness, and to help you believe it. Because only if you believe that money leads to good things instead of bad things will you embrace and attract money into your life. And so before we get started into any of the practical applications of dealing with money in your business and setting up your pricing and determining your value, before we do any of that, we absolutely must address some of these unconscious beliefs that you and a lot of other people are harboring, so that you can rewire the way that you think about money and the way you think about your business, which will remove the blocks and open you up to the abundance that you're looking for. And so I mentioned that there's mixed messages. And what I'm talking about here is that on one hand, our cultures around the world often show us what we should have, this lifestyle of often opulence, but even just a middle-class lifestyle. That's what people are striving for, that they're looking for growth and being able to travel and have nice things. But at the same time, we're also shown messages, and we're told by our parents or teachers or people in our community and the media that we can't have this thing that we're told that we're supposed to want and that we're supposed to have. And so it causes frustration. Now, of course, it's different for every person, because some people are reaching for extreme luxury and they're living in a middle-class existence, and other people are living in poverty and are reaching for that middle class. So it doesn't really matter where you are on the socioeconomic scale. We all have a similar experience in we're reaching for something that we're told that we should have or we should want, but yet we don't have the means to get there, or at least so we are told. And so what happens is it leads people to believe that they cannot have what they want. And so instead of feeling the pain of not being able to have what they want, they convince themselves they don't want it. So that is one of the common scenarios. So a lot of people, especially if you are in business for yourself and you're like what we call a heart-centered entrepreneur, where you're doing something where you're wanting to help people, a lot of people in those types of industries have a tendency to believe that being paid a lot of money or being abundant and making a lot with your business is actually a bad thing, that there's something wrong with it, that maybe, you're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart if you're being paid well, or maybe it's not spiritual to receive a lot of money. And that is just simply not the case, because we live in an abundant world, we live in an abundant universe, and we are all entitled to abundance. And we can all have it if we stop these belief systems that are holding us back. So there are three main categories of belief systems that are money mindsets that hold people back from attracting more money and creating more money in their lives. And so those are poverty, guilt, and fear. And we're going to get into more detail with each of these. But the first one I'm going to talk about is poverty consciousness. So it may be that while you were growing up, you lived in a family or maybe even a community or a country that had a predominance of lack, where you didn't feel like you had everything that you needed, where money seemed like it was hard to get. It could have been because you actually lived in these circumstances, or it could have been just that you heard the people around you talking about how money doesn't grow on trees, or you can't afford certain things, and you associated money with stress, and you associated money with lack. And so ultimately, the core of poverty consciousness is this belief that poverty is pervasive, that it's something that you can't get past, and that there is a lack of money or resources or abundance in the world. And it is simply not the case. But it is a very convincing thing, because what happens is you grow up with these experiences and then you go out into the world, and often you see evidence that those things that you've been taught are true, when in fact you're only looking at a narrow scope of what is real in the world. And so it leads to this belief that money or abundance or resources are like a finite pie, and that every person that takes a slice of this pie is taking away from the whole. So if I eat a slice of this pie, it's taking it out of someone else's mouth. And so that is the end result of believing in poverty and lack. This belief that there's a finite pie and that it's one person versus another, and everybody is competing to get a piece of this pie. And so in the business world, this is seen in businesses that really have this huge problem and aversion with competition, because they truly are fearful that if another business offers the same thing they do, that it's going to take away from them. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a practical reality to competition. However, it doesn't have to be that way. And in many cases, it's not. And the biggest difference between people who are threatened by their competition versus people who are not impacted by their competition is their mindset. Because you don't have to look at, oh my gosh, there's someone competing with me, and then you panic and you're trying to fight for those clients or customers, because that really is that lack mentality that I'm talking about. The difference is that you can focus on the fact that there are plenty of clients and customers in the world, and that each person out there that's looking for a product or service is looking for something different. So if you are for something different than someone that is offering something similar, then your clients aren't their clients. Your customers aren't their customers. And not only that, in our experience, for example, we have Transformation Magazine, which actually began as a print local publication. And when we came onto the market, there was a lot of people talking about competition, because there were other, new thought, empowerment, health-related magazines in our area. And the other companies, as well as a lot of the different businesses that we worked with, were feeling like we were bringing competition to the market. But there were other businesses that we worked with and other people we talked to, including ourselves, that looked at it very differently. We looked at it that if we're bringing information and resources into a market of people, that because of all the power and energy that we bring to the marketplace, we will actually bring more customers and clients to the marketplace than were in there to begin with. And that is absolutely the experience that we had. In fact, very rarely did we and the other magazines kind of trade back and forth our advertisers. We actually had different advertisers, and we had different people that were reading the magazines, and we also had people who would read both. So there was no reason to fear competition. And that's just one example of a different way of thinking about poverty consciousness, about money, and about the pie, and that it's not a matter of there being a finite pie and everybody who wants the pie has to take and fight for their piece. Think of it differently, thinking about it like a pie, that every time someone else wants what's in the pie, it puts more energy into that pie and the pie expands. There is no limit to the size of that pie. It's only in our minds. And so we end up through these experiences, starting in childhood and then seeing the evidence that in a lot of cases, there is this poverty, there is this lack. It develops a belief system that we do not and cannot have enough, that there is not enough out there. And that is truly not the case. All that is a belief. And so how do you change this belief? Well, a belief is only existent because that you have found in your own life evidence to back up your belief. So think about it like a table with legs. So the table itself, the tabletop, is the belief, and the evidence are the legs. So if you can pull out the legs from under it, or you can build a new table, a new belief, by finding evidence of the opposite, that is how you change a belief. And so in childhood, you might have had these seeds planted by people telling you that there's lack. Maybe you observed it, but as an adult, you get to choose. You can change this belief if you feel that this is really part of your core and you feel like it's holding you back. And that we have an activity that you can do that asks several questions that starts to get you to think about the evidence that you have that can build up that new belief that there is, in fact, abundance. There's abundance of opportunity. There's abundance of clients and customers. There's abundance of money. And so we encourage you to do the activity and ask yourself the questions. And some of the questions include looking at what you do have, even if it means you have to look at the people around the world that have less than you to see yourself in comparison and to find gratitude for what you do have and the abundance that you do have. You can remember times when money came to you easily. Maybe it came out of nowhere. Maybe it was a gift. Maybe you won the lottery. Maybe you got an unexpected check in the mail. Looking for the evidence that sometimes it actually is very easy and it does feel like it just comes from the sky or off a tree. You can look at what I talked about, that there is a lot of evidence you can find in your life that there really is no competition because everybody has their own clients. Everybody can offer something different to the world. You can look for all the abundance that you do see in the world. Even though, yes, there may be poverty, there is also abundance. And if it is available for one, it is available for all. You can argue the practical aspects of it, but when it comes down to it, all starts in our minds. And you can also look at the great rags to riches story. Everybody has their favorite example. So who's your favorite example of someone who started with nothing financially and created abundance? I am here to tell you that it is not because they were more lucky than you. It is not because they were more talented than you. And it's not because they had more resources than you. They came from nothing. The difference is that they were resourceful. And the bigger difference is that they had the belief system that what they wanted was possible.